In 2024, Good Kid M.a.a.d will be 12 years old. If it was a human, it would be sent off into the depths of hell that is 7th grade. Luckily, it is a masterful piece of art instead. As much as I love To Pimp a Butterfly and I think it is Kendrick's magnum opus, I tend to revisit Good Kid M.a.a.d the most. It's not only engaging artistically, it's also full of bangers that anyone can enjoy. When I first listened to Good Kid M.a.a.d, I felt so engrossed in the world that Kendrick had built. From the album cover, to the handwriting, the track list, the atmosphere, everything felt so perfect. When I dove deeper into hip-hop, I realized there are a lot more classic albums that use the art of storytelling. I was discovering classics left and right. Now, not all of them hit the same highs as Good Kid M.a.a.d. However, there was one, and I think this is a must-listen-to album when you're getting into hip-hop, and it is Illmatic. When I first heard it, I was blown away. It was absolutely amazing. In fact, it was the original Good Kid M.a.a.d. The storytelling that Nas utilizes to bring you into the streets of Queens is unlike any other. When Nas raps, you can literally imagine the scene. The dirty smell of the air, the piercing cold winters, the concrete jungle, it's all laid out in front of you. Illmatic was from a different time. It wasn't lost in time, it was just another dimension into the same type of art. Instead of the West Coast, Illmatic originally represented the East. I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the amazing rappers in the 90s. We have Biggie, Tupac, Mobb Deep, Gang Starr, A Tribe Called Quest, Outkast, and many, many more. But in my opinion, in the 90s, there's one true king, and it is Nas with Illmatic. The deeper I got into music, the less I saw storytelling albums succeed. In fact, there are a lot of other perfect albums in hip-hop, but they succeed in other ways. Their creativity, their experimentation, that is what makes them perfect. Not a lot of them utilize storytelling to the fullest extent. So that's it. The gap between Illmatic and Good Kid M.a.a.d was about 20 years, so I guess we'll have to wait another 10 years before we get another classic like this. Unless... when I listen to Illmatic, I can't help but connect it to Good Kid M.a.a.d. They're one and the same. They're cut from the same cloth of storytelling. They stand alone as their own albums, but the relationship between the two is clear. 2 decades later, Kendrick is improving sounds and style, but the storytelling remains immaculate. 2022 let me down so much with music. From Pusha T to Joey Badass to Lupe Fiasco, a lot of these supposedly great artists were dropping projects that weren't really that good. So when J.I.D dropped The Forever Story, I kinda slept on him, but boy was I smacked in the face with an instant classic when I listened to it. At the time I thought it was an amazing record, but 2 years later I realized I'm listening to this album religiously, way more compared to the other albums that I thought were better at the time. The Forever Story is a sequel to his debut studio album, The Never Story. It showed off J.I.D's wacky charisma with songs like Ed, Edd n Eddy and Underwear. It also showed off his incredible flow on both halves of Never, and it all started with an intro track, Doo-Wop, where he sings with the soulful spirit of Anderson .Paak. The whole time I listened to The Forever Story, I just kept thinking, this is the southern version of Illmatic. This is the Atlanta version of Good Kid M.a.a.d. When Nas was a kid, he was hungry to be the best MC, and all of his hard work paid off. Kendrick Lamar was in the same boat. Today, J.I.D channeled all the power of hip-hop and decided to pave his own lane with the influences that came before him. And he created The Forever Story, an album that I can't talk about enough. Here's why. I want to talk about JID's flow. In mainstream hip-hop, people's flow is too industrialized. There's a set formula to follow, and if you pack a song with enough features, you can get away with anything on TikTok. I'm pointing fingers at Post Malone, Drake, and even Kanye. You have lazy rapping, slow rapping, weak bars, and people still praise the songs. Other rappers, good as they can be, always do the same thing and it gets boring, and I wish there was more energy or thought put into the bars or features. I'm looking at 21 Savage, Future, and Travis Scott. In contrast, J.I.D raps on beat, off beat, and switches his flow countless times throughout all the tracks. He embodies his inner Eminem before he went lyrical spiritual miracle. Look, J.I.D's bars. You can't tell me this man isn't a masterful wordsmith. Outside of these bars, he also has in-your-face moments where he brings you into his memories on the front lines of the drama when he was growing up. Whether it was the stress he feels on the football field, the fighting he went through as a kid, his perseverance through poverty, and his neighborhood growing up, you are literally time traveling through J.I.D's life from past to present. J.I.D's energy. He comes in so hungry and he wants it all. From the first 5 tracks, not including the intro, He is non-stop delivering some of the highest energy songs with non-stop beat switches, witty bars, and vibrant features. Even when the vibes slow down, he's delivering some of the most heartfelt songs with as much energy as you can have for losing a loved one and realizing that you and your siblings need to stick together because you are all you have left. J.I.D's singing. It only improves from the Never story. Although J.I.D isn't a singer, he definitely could be. From Galaxy to Coded Blue 31 to Blood and M to Better Days, yet again, he showcases his dynamic range of abilities where he can even sing his own hooks on his songs. J.I.D's choice in production. He really evolves from his previous works and brings in some of the sharpest production in hip-hop to date. There's incredible beat switches, old throwback samples like surround sound, eerie sounds on songs like Crack Sandwich, and there's bright sounds on the back half of the album. He also has one of the coldest beats of all time on Systonym by Hollywood Cold. And last but not least, J.I.D's storytelling. He comes in boastful like any rapper, but unlike the other ones who put an image of being the best, he's here to prove he actually is. He wasn't always this way, however. The album progresses through moments of vulnerability, stories about his childhood, his family, and how he was raised. There's stories about his role models, like Yasin Bey. There's stories about how his family couldn't afford food for the kids, how they needed to suffer through violence and crime in order to make it. He details how he was brought up still affects him to this day, and these memories and life lessons will stay with him forever. People have been saying hip-hop is dying, but look, right in front of you is an instant classic that came out this decade. Just because Lil Yachty switched up his style and started making psychedelic rock albums, Tyler the Creator made Igor, which is a neo-soul album, and Cardi is riding the wave of rage, doesn't mean hip-hop is dying. There aren't as many artists that are on the table for best rapper, but I think J.I.D is definitely a candidate for the 2020. It's not because there's less competition in this oversaturated market of popular rappers. If you put J.I.D next to some of the wittiest underground rappers like Billy Woods, Mike, or Navy Blue, he can go bar for bar and hook for hook. His evolution from wacky stripped-back bars and beats to one of the most engrossing albums of the 2020s shows he can only go up. The limitless amount of producers he can work with, the features he can inspire, and the storytelling concept albums he can make only bring him further to the top. Although there will never be another Illmatic or Good Kid M.a.a.d, it is great to see the art of storytelling still influencing classic albums to this day. Another masterful storytelling album has been solidified in the books. I hope the next generation can still be inspired by OGs in hip-hop, but I hope they can also be inspired by contemporary artists like J.I.D. There's so much opportunity for people to look at the peak of storytelling. It's only a matter of time before another classic is made. Until that day comes, I know I will be listening to Nas, Kendrick, and J.I.D forever.